something I found really intriguing about listening to your story, and it made me think about all of my past, grandmothers, relatives, so forth. Was there anything ever like this available in Australia? What opportunities to enroll in these drug trials were available at the time? Even my grandmother, I know she got a incorrect diagnosis initially and ended up passing away from the breast cancer. And I think if they had the spirit like Julie had, or if there was things like this available in Australia. But at the moment, and it's only a very new thing, and it's a area in the research which is continuing to grow and develop, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. There's people out there supporting charities like the Cancer Council and spreading awareness and raising funds for ongoing research into this. Um, but when we talk a lot about chemotherapy, I guess this is a very generalized kind of understanding of it, and obviously just going based on my own experiences with relatives and family. But it's used to destroy most of the cells, the cancer cells, but it also destroys a lot of the healthy cells within the body. And so that's kind of why we lose our hair. You feel very fatigued. It can affect your cardiovascular function, to the point where you develop, autonomic neuropathy or peripheral neuropathy, so damaging nerves as well. Um, and when you think about it, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense in the scheme of things. It's obviously all we really had for a long time. But destroying the body just to get rid of the cancer cells, you think when it come back after your chemotherapy treatment, you're weaker. You've lost your hair, your quality of life is severely reduced. And as you've talked about a lot throughout your book and your own experiences, the one thing that you wanted to do, and you even came home from your trial early, which we'll talk about, but to spend time with your family, you wanted to spend every minute with the people you loved. And, if you're going through this chemotherapy and you're unfortunately deteriorating your body, and it doesn't make too much sense. But then when I looked at this, and the immunotherapy drugs, as we were talking off air before we came on, it makes so much more sense, doesn't it? It's an incredible work they're doing, um, to get more of these drugs out there, on the market to help people with cancer like yourself. But essentially, there was a 30 to 40% response rate in the patients that were on the trial. So you didn't have it wasn't 100% you're going to survive this. There was an element of, um, doubt, but you were happy to take that 30 to 40%, weren't you, on this
Oh,
immunotherapy drug?
yeah, absolutely. When I looked into it, when I did the research and it described immunotherapy, it just, in layman's terms, it's a drug that helps the body help itself. That's a very, short version of what it does, but it literally, and you mentioned nivolumab, which is now what the drug's called, but when I was on the trial, it was just called PD-1, and the PD stand for programmed death. Okay, so what they're trying to do is not kill me, but kill the cancer. And the drug sits, it intravenously goes into your body. It sits on your T cells, which is your immune fighting cells, and then it's amazing, and it teaches the T cells to recognize and destroy the cancer. So, and it only affects the cancer cells, not your healthy cells. And I'm like reading this going, wow, that's what I want. That's where I need to be. Yes, it's 30%, 40%, but it's better than no percent. Like chemotherapy had never saved a soul with my diagnosis, not
It's
one.
really prolonged life, doesn't it?
It does. And quite often, when you see that happening, it's not a very good life either.
Yeah.
It definitely played its part for me. So the chemotherapy played its part for me because it just helped me stay alive long enough to, you
Send the
know,
emails.
yeah, send some emails and get on this trial. But yeah, now quite prevalent, immunotherapy, especially for melanoma patients. So for instance, if I fronted up tomorrow, that same doctor in that same place would say, you've got stage 4 metastatic melanoma. We're going to put you on this drug. 40% of people, and I think now they couple it with another drug too sometimes, and I think it's up to like 50% of people are responding
Awesome.
And surviving. So it is out there now. They're trying to tweak it for other cancers, and I believe that it will be the thing in the end, but it's not happening quick enough if you ask me. But I'm very, very lucky, and the timing of when this all happened to me, had it have happened 6 months earlier, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah.
It was that. Yep.
And so the other statistic to that, which makes things a little bit difficult, is there's only 40% of people respond to the drug though. So although it's the increasing response rate, there's still a large volume of people which don't respond to the drug at all. So I guess that's where a lot of the research is going at the moment. And, how do we make more people respond to these immunotherapy drugs, which effectively, as you said, they just seek, or they activate the body's own immune system to seek out and destroy those cancer cells, which makes a lot more sense to me in terms of how you should be combating this. But obviously, we're not the brains trust here, and it's fantastic work they're doing, but we hopefully see more of this in the future. And I'm sure we'll talk more towards the end of today about how you're advocating for people to get behind great causes. Are you taking anything now anymore?
No, nothing.
I think the word they used on the 60 Minutes episode you're on was a complete metabolic restoration.
Yeah. Complete metabolic response. And so but for me, I didn't know that for a long time. So I had, every time I had a scan, they say you're stable, your cancer is stable. But in my mind, I knew I didn't have cancer anymore. I just knew it. And I would even say sometimes to the doctors, they'd say, oh, your disease is stable. And I'd say, I don't have a disease. and they'd look at me like I was crazy. But I just knew I didn't have a disease anymore. And when I finally had that PET scan for 60 Minutes, and I had a complete, I can't remember if my doctor said it on the show, but it's like it's scarring. What I had was scarring in my body. So I had scar tissue. So every time I went to the doctors and they told me my disease was stable, it was actually just scarring. It wasn't even a disease. So people they know that now, but for me, it took 5 years to get to that place where they told me you've had a complete metabolic response and you no longer have cancer.
And so that scan was a 5-year follow-up, and I think that was about 10 years ago. Is that correct?
Yeah, like 11 years on the 21st of June since I fell down. Yeah.
That's coming up. Exciting.
Yes.
For you, I guess.
Yeah, it is.
Celebration, no doubt.
Yeah.
Was there any other drugs you took? So I know there's a lot, like I work a lot with people living with diabetes, and one of the most common oral medications for people living with type 2 diabetes, for instance, is metformin. It's actually been linked to slowing tumor growth and progression in vitro, and it's been used in a lot of chemoradiotherapy patients suffering from head and neck cancers as well. Were you ever heard anything about that, or medication?
I have heard a little bit. I haven't looked into it a lot, I've got to say, but it sounds promising and amazing. And they're just coming up with all these combinations of drugs now. They're coupling one thing with another, and one attacks at one end and the other one attacks at the other end. And it's, all very promising. And maybe in 10 years, if we talk again, we're going to have a whole different scenario around how far we've come with treatments and stuff. But at the moment, I still see a lot of sadness, and I support patients. And yeah, sadly, not enough of us are surviving.